Well, good morning, everyone. Thomas Montgomery. It is a beautiful Friday morning. Today is February 16th, 2024. We get together with our distribution partners most weekday mornings at this time, talk about strategies, tips, techniques, share success stories, and support each of you. Well, we're right about halfway point through the month of February, aren't we? So this is a good time to pause and reflect. How is this month going for you and your branch? And we're going to talk again about another model of lead development and client development. But before that, let's just stop and again realize your branch is a business and you're the CEO, you're the president, you're the boss of your branch. And either you're running a profitable business slash branch or you're not. And if you're not, we really need to fix it, right? Why bother running, owning, operating an unprofitable business? There's no reason to. So, what you and I do is needed, it's credible, and it's very profitable if you do it. When we say if you do it, the role of the branch with the startup program isn't to implement, it's to go out and create awareness, conduct financial literacy to the extent that you want, and enroll clients. So either you're good at that or you're not good at that. And we need to recognize, we need to be able to look in the mirror and say, either I'm good at my job or I'm not good at my job. Now, the nice thing about what you and I do is we can measure how good you are at your job by looking at your bank account, your branch bank account, right? Because you're running your branch. I'm sure, like a business, it has its own bank account. So you can look at your bank account. What have your deposits been thus far in February? And if you're not generating a significant income, your branch is not performing well. So we need to do something different. Over the past couple of days, we've talked about different branch models. What's the same is all of these branch owners that we've been highlighting, they're offering the same resource to the same and general target audience, small business owners that want and need capital, but they have different approaches. And so maybe you're learning, picking something up, and maybe you will adopt from some of these success stories. We're going to talk about Bret Anderson's model today, which is much different than the others we've talked about recently. If any of you are willing to share your model with the group, we'd love to do so. And some of you are doing really well. We'd like to feature you. So, Eric Boone, would you give us permission to share with everyone else your model next week? Jeanette Shepard, may we have your permission to show others your model? Larry Johnson, you're coming on strong. May we have your permission? We want to share these success stories. Pearlie Gibson, Tim Swearingen, Barney Barker. So if we can share the spirit of giving and helping others, then I'm sure you'll see some benefit from that as well. But let's go ahead and get into the Bret Anderson model. Let me tell you a little bit about Bret before we get started. He's different. He's very smart. He's much smarter than me. Maybe he's not smarter than you, but he's really smart, and he knows it. and he, because of his intelligence, he is able to make good business decisions. And one of the business decisions that he has made, or I guess one of the recognitions he has, is he must have consistent lead flow to have a profitable business. And that's true probably for whether you're running a pizza shop or a CPA firm. Lead flow is crucial. So Bret has a much different approach. Bret will not buy leads. He will not buy leads from anyone. He has some strong opinions on that. So his goal, of course, like most of our top producers, is to enroll one client per day. And hopefully my screen is sharing with you right now. So his goal, enroll a client a day in the startup program. We've had separate conversations where we talked about what the startup program is and does. That's not our focus today. If you're not familiar with that, we can get you caught up to speed later. But as I mentioned, Bret, and I don't know what his intelligence is. I know he's probably Mensa level. So again, he's just operating at a really high level. So one of the decisions that he has made is he uses an outsourced virtual agent. And I'll describe what that means and how that works. And it's crazy cheap, so it's not a price barrier for anyone. So he goes through a firm, and I'll give you the firm's information so you can do the same if you want. And that firm provides these virtual agents. So then the virtual agents get on the phone and generate the leads for him. So he's not buying leads, he's essentially buying time of a virtual agent who generates leads. Well, what's the real benefit of that? He gets to pick through this model exactly the criteria that he wants, whether it be geographic, credit scores, time in business, industries, gender, race, whatever he would want to filter on, then his virtual agent looks for exactly what he's wanting. And so as that applies to you, that makes a lot of sense, right? Because we've talked all along about the importance of having a defined target audience. Who specifically are you going after? Is it pre-formation businesses? Is it early stage? Is it more mature businesses that just aren't fundable? Is it a certain industry? So that's what this model that he uses allows him to put the filters in. Now, if I understand correctly, what Bret likes are bad credit startup businesses. Why do you think he might want that criteria? Let's get some feedback from you. So Andrew, Bernard, Charles, Cybercom, David, Eric, Jeanette, Justin, Kenya, Larry, Marilyn. Oh my gosh, we have 421 of you. Roxana, Richard, Terrence, Tim, Barney, others. Why do you think that Bret, who's a crazy smart guy, not crazy, but he's incredibly intelligent, why do you think he wants his virtual agents to target this audience? What do you think? Go ahead and type your feedback into the Q&A. It's like a chat box, a Zoom. Why do you think he would target this criteria? All right, well, Timothy and actually Marilyn both kind of have a similar response, is that we're looking for imperfect clients, right? The perfect client doesn't need you and I in the startup program as much as imperfect clients. Imperfect clients aren't fundable, which is frankly the majority. So when he focuses on those that have bad credit, they have limited options, as Marilyn stated. Businesses that are earlier stage have less options. So that makes a lot of sense. But again, if you were to use the same resource he uses, just keep in mind, you could set whatever criteria you want, because the opposite could have some advantages, right? If he were to only look for people that had good credit, then those individuals would probably have higher first tranche financing than those that don't. So there's pros and cons of everything, but you control those filters. So when he's going out and using his virtual agents, the virtual agents are not his sales team. They're the lead development team. So they're out developing the leads, finding qualified warm leads, and then they pitch them over to Bret. So keep in mind, this is not an outsourced sales model. Not that you couldn't do that, but Bret's model is not an outsourced sales model. It's an outsourced lead generation model. So these virtual agents do the research, make the calls, and then they can either do warm transfers or set appointments for Bret. Bret, like several others that we've talked about this week, really likes to lead with the $500 out of pocket. In other words, instead of the client paying the $2,500 for the startup, he pitches, look at all the value that you get for only $500. And we talked about this a little bit yesterday. A lot of people are short-term oriented. What's it going to cost me today? And what am I going to get today or very soon? So what he mentions, which isn't on the screen, is, hey, we can get you started for $500, and here are some immediate benefits. We'll do a quick cash transfer to you for $10,000. We'll apply for your first tranche of funding and get you your first round, get you funding offers within 7 days. And then while it does take 30 to 60 days normally to create a fundable business, he's really building up the immediacy of the benefits that are immediate. Now, his income really is the same model that we've looked at earlier this week, because it's the same as probably what yours should be. We really strive to have branches that are doing a deal a day. Every day is payday, as Thomas Kearns likes to say. So he's making a very modest $500 a day, but if you extrapolate that out over a month, it's not bad. It's $15,000 a month of gross income from just the upfront income. So is that all that Bret is generating for income? Of course not. Bret gets paid 4 times from every client. You should be getting paid 4 times from every client. So you get paid today when they enroll, you get paid again in 7 days, you get paid again in 30 days, and you get paid again in 90 days, as we've talked about yesterday. But the key is making sure that your front end income for your branch allows you to be profitable and stay in business, because businesses that are not profitable don't stay around, right? And so there's some urgency for some of you to get your branches profitable, or your branch won't continue. It'll close. So with that, let's look at his budget. So Bret's budget is $12 an hour, and it's not like he picked that randomly. The vendor that he works with, which I'll introduce you here in a moment, we don't have any financial interest in, no conflict of interest. His vendor charges him $12 an hour. That's their fee schedule for getting virtual agents or virtual assistants, whatever you want to call them, that are working the phones. So maybe you like that dollar amount, maybe you don't. You could mimic this system, but keep in mind, these virtual assistants or virtual agents, whatever they should be called, they're finding the people to call, making the calls, and then doing a warm transfer over to Bret. So he doesn't have to go find the leads. They find the leads, they make the calls, and they either do warm transfers or set the appointments. Incredibly valuable. So if you can find competent people to do this for less, maybe you could reduce your cost. All right, I see a response from Harry. Harry says he can't afford $12 an hour. Well, if your branch is insolvent, Harry, we could get you some working capital, or you could always team up. And I know that there's a couple of you that are teaming up to share expenses. So let's say that you got 4 branches together and you each chipped in. So now you're down to $3 an hour. So if each of you chipped in $3, then 4 of you would cover a cost of an hour. But he reports that normally about half the leads he's closing. So that's a lot higher conversion rate than we saw with the branch yesterday. But why is that? Well, think about it. Someone else is doing all the hard work, right? He's just explaining the value proposition. Someone else has gone out and found the leads, contacted the leads, and got the leads transferred over to him. So yeah, his conversion ratio is much higher, which I think many of you will like to see. Again, the income models is about the same for most of the top branches, because it's all the same model, right? We got front end income and we get paid 3 more times. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about where he's getting his virtual agents from, and maybe this is a resource that you'd want to consider. So there's a company called synergydirectsolution.com. it's kind of a busy website, but on the online orders, it breaks down their fees because you can buy leads from Synergy Direct. But no, that is not what Bret does. Instead, Bret uses their virtual agent or virtual assistant, whatever it's called, system, which they charge $12 an hour. So what's awesome is that these people at Synergy Direct Solution, whom I don't know personally, they go out and they recruit the agents, they train them. So these agents are ready to make cold calls. They're motivated to make cold calls. I think some of you, and probably me, just it's not really what I'd prefer to do during the day is make cold calls. That's a rough task. So, some people like it, but few do. Well, they figured out who it is that likes to do it. They've trained them already. Now, they haven't trained them on your pitch, of course, but these folks are trained and capable, ready to make cold calls, set appointments, and or transfer leads to you. Now, let's say, oh, you're busy. You like this virtual agent concept, but you don't want to be the closer. Then that's fine. Then we can bring someone else in and do the closing, and you've outsourced the entire sales process. Now, I don't believe Bret's doing that. I think Bret's just amazing on the phone. I talked to him this morning. Bret's engaged, right? So what do you typically see with successful branches? They're engaged. He was texting me last night at 11:30. He and I were texting back and forth between 11 p.m. and midnight. This morning, we were already on the phone together, right? So that's commonly what you see with successful entrepreneurs. They're engaged. They're actively engaged because I don't think you're going to make a lot of money at anything if you're not actively engaged. Bret's smart. He knows that. But the point is, if you don't want to be the closer, you don't have to be the closer, right? But I think it's important to understand as we think about the sales continuum, there's really two different aspects. There's the lead generation, and then there's the closing. Lead generation first, closing second. I think some of you try to have one person in that entire spectrum, and it's really a set of different tasks of different competencies. So he has done, he uses the virtual agent that does the front end, and he does his own closing. Again, the point is, if you don't want to do the closing, we can plug in a closer, right? So you have one team that's out generating the leads, and you could have a different team that's closing, and you just sit back and manage your branch. You run the branch. You don't have to be doing the work. And then the other thing that Bret says he likes about the virtual agents is that they'll do more than just make these cold calls. They'll also follow up on unsold leads. They'll send out emails so that they'll provide a lot of sales support activities, if you will. So again, if you need working capital, we can help you. So let's make this smaller and let's break this down. What we want to do is get your feedback. What do you like or dislike about this model? What constructive criticism could you give Bret? So let's open it up, and each of you will go ahead and type in your feedback into the chat box, the Q&A box. It's like a chat box on Zoom. So Al, what are your thoughts if you were to be the consultant, Bret Anderson's consultant, Al, and so you looked at what Bret's doing? What would you advise him? What guidance could you give? What are you doing different in your branch that maybe you could teach Bret, and maybe Bret could make more money per client? Maybe you're seeing higher income, Al, or maybe you're seeing a higher conversion rate. Or maybe you found cheaper assistants. So Al and Andrew, again, it's important that you all get involved. Charles, Cybercom, David, Eric, Felicia, Jeanette, Jenny. Good morning, Jenny. Welcome. You had a new client yesterday. Great job. Justin, Kataya, Kenya, Larry. Again, we've got 425 on here now. I can't list everyone's names. Richard, Roxana, Terrence, Tim, Trevor, Varney, and others. What's your constructive criticism What do you think that Bret could be doing better? Because Bret's smart, but probably you're smarter, right? So you're able to stand back, look at what he's doing, and give him advice. All right, so David says, great model for people with limited time, virtual agent and turnover as a referral. How could a person lose? Yeah, I mean, it's profitable. It works. The only reason that probably any of you wouldn't want to do this is if you didn't have $12. And so if any of you don't have $12, again, you could team up with other branches. And if you had 4 of you, then you'd only have to put $3 in a piece. Marilyn says, Bret's doing well. He's cornered a great market and has a great approach. Yep. I think it makes sense. I think the key variable is just deciding, do you want to be the closer? Are you good at closing? And if so, then you might want to try this model. Let's just say between now and the end of the month, for the next couple weeks, what if you were to try this model? So you reach out to, and again, I'm not a salesperson for Synergy Direct, but you can go to synergydirectsolution.com. You can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm interested in this virtual assistant program, or virtual agent, I forget what it's called. I've used the terms interchangeably. And talk to them. They're real people, and get set up and just try it for the next 2 weeks or for the next month, and just see how it works for you. Maybe it'll work for you like it works for him. I know a lot of you are blowing and going. You're making a lot of money doing what you're doing, and that's why we're pleading with you. Will you allow us to tell your story, because some of you are doing better than Bret. Some of you are not just doing 1 deal a day. Some of you are doing multiple deals per day on a consistent basis. But I need your permission to tell the story. So, Roxana, may we have your permission to tell your story to the others? Tim Swearingen, thank you for coming on strong. Can we get your permission to tell the rest of the world your model? Varney, the same. Who has questions, comments, concerns this morning on Bret Anderson's branch model? We try to wrap up our calls, our sessions on Friday a little early, because for the past 3 days, we've highlighted different branch models, if you will, different approaches. On Wednesday, we highlighted a model, the Tom Kearns model, about targeting pre-formation businesses, and we even provided you a lead source for that. Yesterday, we focused on early stage, in other words, already formed businesses, and even provided you a lead source for it, which was Lead Tycoon, if I recall. And then today, we're talking about a different approach. No. Don't buy leads. Get your own virtual agent who will generate leads that match your exact criteria. And then we also injected a new variable. Hey, if you want to remove yourself completely, and there's 2 reasons why you might want to remove yourself from the process. One is if you just look in the mirror and you suck at what you're doing, right? If you look at your branch and you're not making any money and you're not enrolling any clients, maybe it's time to outsource the sales process. Just step away from it. Run your business, be the CEO, manage the money, but let other people go do the work. So that would be one approach. Okay, Justin's asking where you can get the virtual assistant. Well, I think I've done a bad job, and Justin pointed it out. I should have done a better job. So what I meant to tell everyone is, here is where Bret goes. Bret goes to synergydirectsolution.com. I meant to say that, and I'm sorry, Justin, if I didn't. What I also meant to say is that the Synergy Direct Solution website's kind of busy. They have different services and solutions, including selling leads, which is not what we're talking about here. But if you go to their page, online orders, you can see information about the virtual agents. They have a web form where you can reach out to these people, talk to them, and explore options. So Justin, do you see that now? synergydirectsolution.com. That's my fault. I didn't make that clear enough before. But that's what I would say on closing is, if you look at your numbers And if you're not on track for a 6-figure month, if you're not on track, so in other words, if you're not looking at right now about 50,000 in deposits in your branch bank account thus far for February, I would try this for, let's just say, try it for a month, starting today, February 16th through March 16th. Just try it for a month. I mean, you won't lose money. You'll at least break even or be profitable. But we need to do something. And I'll talk to some of you and I'll say, well, how does your lead flow look? And there's like three leads they have. It's like their mom, their brother, and a guy that lives down the hall. And it's like, that's horrible to be running what should be $1 million branch and your total lead flow is 3 people. That's woefully inadequate. Now, maybe that's a good start, but that's woefully inadequate when there's hundreds, there's thousands, there's tens of thousands, there's hundreds of thousands of small businesses that want to need funding, but they're not fundable. And so let's go reach the masses. Let's work on a larger scale rather than a small scale. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. It's a blessing to visit with you this morning. We'll see you back Monday morning. Have a good day and a good weekend. Let us know what we can do to help. Bye-bye.